I'm from that part of the world. France and Belgium, we have this shame about money. We don't want to make money out of something. We don't want to be proud to make money. We don't want to talk numbers too much. So it's not easy to come from that background, and I also believe that in academia it's a widespread idea that it should be not related to money in any way.
Welcome to this new episode of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Today I'm super happy to have from across the pond Arnaud Stiepen. Arnaud Stiepen is a science communicator, TV host and award-winning astrophysicist. A former NASA collaborator and doctor in planetary sciences, he transforms complexity into clarity for audiences ranging from children to global decision makers. Creator and presenter of the TV shows Episteme and EpiKids, host of the Pulse podcast and speaker at international events including TEDx, he is recognized for making science both accessible and inspiring. Through his brand Nexus by Arnaud Stiepen, he helps researchers, companies and institutions bring their innovations to life with impact. Welcome to Beyond the Thesis, Arnaud. It's really cool to have you here today and to talk about science communication, but also scientific entrepreneurship. Welcome.
Hey, hi. I'm super excited to have been invited by you, David. I'm super glad that we have this little chat, and I mean the two topics you just mentioned are the best, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, they're good. They're important. They are super important in today's world, scientific communication in particular, because there is some anti-science movement happening now in certain parts of society. So we scientists need to step up to the plate and be at the table where these conversations are taking place, or else the discourse is going to just run away from us, but I think and the good news is that young scientists are coming out of universities with experience in science communication. There's a very strong movement that is kind of pushing them to do things like the 3-minute thesis, etc., and more. That is, I think, very heartening, and that is going to, at least to me, gives me hope that the new generations, new cohorts coming out already are going to be better communicators than their predecessors may have been in the past.
Not to say that older scientists are good at it, because I know so many who are excellent in that, but it's a whole generation of new scientists coming up with the idea that we have a responsibility and a joy to share what we do, because there's a lot of enthusiasm and love that we pour into what we do, and it's just natural for me to share it.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that's also, I think, more and more prevalent is that because you said something important, not every scientist needs to be a science communicator. Not every scientist needs to have a TV show or a TikTok channel. That's not true. But I think even like funding agencies, the way they're kind of changing the requirements for the different funding programs brings us to a situation where scientists who are maybe not as comfortable being on camera themselves now know and actually have funds to bring people in to help them do that. And that's where you come in, Arnaud. So you came from astrophysics, you had this NASA collaboration, but eventually you understood, in introspection, that what you wanted to do was not to be in the lab, but be in this Nexus. And you've explained this to me before. Can you talk about why you chose Nexus and what is this mission that you've given yourself with Nexus?
It's funny because it's because I'm very, very naive about science. I think that if you're a scientist, you have two ways of being a scientist. One way is to produce new science. So you work on your PhD or postdoc, and you do research, and you produce new knowledge. And the other way is to share it to the world as best as you can. So in that very naive view of mine, I've worked in research for 10 years or so. And then I decided that it's not that I wasn't good or I wasn't thrilled by what I do, but I felt timing was right for me to move from producing new knowledge to sharing that new knowledge that others can produce. And so Nexus, it's Latin for link, actually. So that means the link between research, academia, engineers, and funding institutions, as you mentioned, and general audiences. So the idea that I have is that in my career, whenever I tried to put myself in a box, I was feeling kind of unhappy with the situation, and I'm feeling way more useful as an interface between boxes, so between academia and general audiences or whatever I cited before. So the idea of Nexus was that, and then I realized, and I talked to many of my colleagues, scientist colleagues, and I realized that they did lack time and money and upskilling to talk to funding panels and general audiences. For a lot of them, they don't. It's not that they don't like it; it's that they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the energy and the time to do so. They wish they could share what they do on a daily basis, but they can't for so many reasons. So I thought that, there's something to be done there. I can help them with that. I can help scientists and engineers on one hand, and on the other hand, I can help the general public and audiences, kids, or older people, adults, teenagers, who they really want to know what's happening in the labs. They do want to know. They do want to embrace science, and they do want to jump in. But there's this glass door that in a way they can't penetrate the labs. Yeah. So, and I'm not the only one, of course, doing so. We are so many people, and universities are doing that. But in my humble everyday work life, I try to break that glass door.
Amazing, and I think it's very needed. Like you said, not everyone has the bandwidth, not everyone has the will, not every scientist has the will or the penchant to do it, and so there needs to be people like you out there who work at this as this like nexus, as this go between the worlds, and that help them bring their message to a different audience, to a non-academic audience, in a way that it'll resonate with them, be memorable, and eventually bring some positive change to their lives or to habits or whatever. And because if this translation work is not done, then the knowledge doesn't go through, and then the outcome isn't there. Amazing. Now I've crossed paths with a lot of young researchers, young PhD students, even who have entrepreneurship ideas. Some, want to do consulting based on their expertise, etc. Some have more like, more like product-based, like for example, medical device type businesses. But in this case, in your case, of being this translator, this communicator, this facilitator of knowledge transfer, let's say, how does one in today's environment, in today's like science environment, funding environment, how does one make it a business? How does one make money out of being this interpreter, being this producer of content but based on an exercise of translation of knowledge from a more complex academic level to different levels depending on an audience. How does it work, let's say, financially?
Yeah, money-wise, I would say that if you can solve a problem or fill a need, there's money that you can make out of it. And it's not, I live in Belgium, and I was born and raised in Belgium, lived in the US for a while, but I'm from that part of the world, and it's France and Belgium. We have this shame about money. We don't want to make money out of something. We don't want to be proud to make money. We don't want to talk numbers too much. So it's not easy to come from that background, and I also believe that in academia it's a widespread idea that it should be not related to money in any way. But it's not very easy for me to have moved from this background and to accept that I'm trying to run a business. It's a change. It's a real shift. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't see the numbers and I don't see the money I'm trying to make. Of course, it's a major priority, because when you run a business, you get to have your cash flow. You get to get paid for what you do. But I see money not as a goal, but as a way to do more. So with money, I can invest and I can hire more people, so I can make people get paid for what they do, and help me to communicate even more science and more projects, and I can enhance the quality and also the quantity of people reaching my clients and my projects and the projects that I support with my activities. So to me, it's really not a goal by itself, money, but definitely a way to running a business in that kind of field in my region. You get to be very careful about those kind of questions.
Okay,
there's a lot of sensibilities with that.
That's okay. That's fine. But maybe then let me rephrase quickly, which is for someone who has a concept, has an idea, and it's not a product, because products are easier, and universities have like these pre-incubator offices that help people with that. But science communication, it's different. You're really launching, yourself as this person, and for someone who has a project like this, I just wanted you to kind of, in very large how do you say, strokes, describe how do you get from idea to first contract? How do you make it happen? Because like you said, money is kind of this ground where everything has to happen. And we know that when you're starting something up, you're probably going to have to work for free for a few months before you start making money. And then, like you said in our previous conversation, there's also an X amount of time until you begin making profit. So just kind of a blueprint of who do you talk to? What key moments? What key operations? What key? I'm just looking for the right word. But what key actions are there? What key milestones are there for you to go from idea to first contract and then profitability? I don't want numbers per se, but just to inspire the young one out there who's still at the idea level of things.
Well, it's for me in science communication. It's the same in any field, I believe. If you got an idea and you want to sell it, to someone. Could be B2B, B2C, whatever. but you get to know your potential customers. And the only way, that's my understanding, the only way to know them is to go and talk with them. Because you don't try to, you're trying to fix one of their need or problem, and you're trying to bring them solutions for that. That's the core of your idea, right? So, you get to get out of your office and talk to your customers and ask them what they need and what they're willing to pay for that, and what you can build with them. I don't see the provider to customer relationship as a one-sided relationship. I really see it as a collaboration. I know that with my clients, I like to say that we co-produce things. We co-write and co-develop projects. And I really like this idea of reciprocity. So that's my approach, because I'm very much interested in human relationships. And as I said, Nexus means the link. So I'm very interested in linking people and getting actions that move from one group to another, and being helpful for that movement. But I truly believe that your idea is like, it's like science that you don't talk about. If you don't get out of there and talk to people, it's like a dead star. That's a quiet science or quiet idea is like a dead star. It's a beautiful poetic idea, but it's not useful to anyone, and especially not to you. Yeah.
So I really find it interesting, and I really like that. What you're saying is that this, none of this is a recipe, and it's not purely technical. There's some technical aspects to it, of course, but it's human. That's what you're telling me. What I asked you a question, and what you said is, look, I can tell you many things, but what's really important is talking with people. I guess talking with your potential client, who eventually can change after you have that first conversation. You think, okay, I thought they were clients, but actually it's them. You're right. I think that's a possibility. But also, mentors or it's not a solitary endeavor, from what I understand. There's this connection with your potential clients, and now with your clients. But you also need to learn this new language of startups, business entrepreneurship, finance, etc. How did you navigate that? And again, always thinking of someone who's still very in the very beginning stages, and maybe just thinking, what, maybe after this I want to be an entrepreneur, but they still have zero, it's just still an idea. How did you navigate learning the job? Because it's a completely different set of rules, a different language, culture, etc.
Yeah, but good for you. If you're a PhD student, you've learned to learn. So you know how to adapt yourself and learn new things. So, that's one of the many perks of being a PhD student or having a PhD, is that you really pushed your capacities of learning to the maximum. So I'm absolutely sure that if you put the energy in it, you can learn that new language of marketing, or selling your ideas. You can learn that. If you've learned astronomy, microbiology, IT, whatever you name it, you're capable of learning that field. It's not that it's not an easier field, and I'm not ranking fields between them, but it's that you do have the capacity in you to just still grow and learn new skills and new things to do. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, if this is something you want, look around you at the university where you are and take any courses that they offer that have to do with entrepreneurship, et cetera, because again, like you said, you're primed to learn already, and you'll see that very quickly. You'll feel like, okay, I can do this. But you had mentioned to me in the previous conversation the importance of mentors, and I wonder whether you have something, major learning, very important piece of learning that you've had in this entrepreneurship journey, or a key pivotal conversation that you can share with the people listening, and also that age-old question of how do you find a mentor, because that stumps a lot of people. And I've through the years I've started to have an answer of my own, but I'd really love to hear yours.
Yeah, I'm a martial artist, and it's the same question, how you find your professor or sensei or whatever you want to call them. The very same question. How do you find your master thesis promoter or PhD, or PI for project? How do you find them? As you understood, I'm very interested in the human part of it. So I'm very interested in talking with people that first of all, I think they need to exhibit some kind of skills or expertise that you don't have, because that's the very definition of mentorship, right? Yeah, they are better than you are, and they should be way better than you in some field, and you should learn from them. And don't worry about it, because by learning from them, you'll give them something. And I know that as a teacher, I was also an Aikido teacher, and I've learned so much from my students. So I know that it's a two-way street. So you get to find someone whose qualities and skills and expertise you appreciate. The second, not advice, but in my life, the second thing that I'm looking for is that I want to feel comfortable with that person. I want to be, and we've talked about that in the previous episode. I want to be able to have a lunch or dinner with that person and have a really good time. I want to. I can't, and I don't want, maybe because I'm getting close to my 40s, but I don't want to work with assholes anymore. And sorry if you have to censor that, but
no, I don't. It's fine. I think we're all grown up.
Yeah, right. But I do want to go with people with whom I'm sure I can spend an hour or two, just talking about life and everything, and just feeling good with them. I truly believe that if your instinct tells you not to follow that person, well, maybe you should listen to your instinct.
Yeah, amazing. Now it's interesting. So I've done the martial art that I've done the most in life has been Aikido, and it's the one that if I come back to the martial arts, it's going to be Aikido. Yeah, it's funny, and it's funny we hadn't mentioned this, but in martial arts and in Aikido, especially if you do like more traditional Aikido, but not only, there's an etiquette, right? There's ways to be on the tatami, etc. And I wonder because also one thing that comes out a lot. I have a lot of the PhD students that I meet either in person or online say, but this person I'm a little bit intimidated by them, and I fear that I'm going to send them a message and they'll be like, who's this student writing to me? And I'd love to see whether you can share your advice, and I think you can give advice on this, about what's the etiquette when reaching out to someone you admire in your scientific field or in a professional field. And is it, and I know cultures differ. I know, for example, in France, hierarchy is super important. I don't know if in Belgium it's the same. Here
it's
in
the
Canada,
same in the French speaking parts. Yeah.
But here in Canada and even more in the US, it's much more horizontal. It's not so important. So for people who are worried about, I'm going to be bugging this person, what's okay to do when reaching out to someone that you admire, let's say?
Well, I'll tell you something. I've spent most of my teenage years being a very shy person. And whenever there was a dancing bar or something, I would not go for the girls that I would like to dance with. And at the end of the night, I didn't dance at all. I was sitting on my chair, and that did no good for me. Nowadays, I'm in a very different approach. It's that my knuckles are very firm because I knock on doors a lot. If that doesn't work, I knock with my head. And if that doesn't work, I knock at the window. And if that still doesn't work, I will try and find another way. I'm not a stalker. I'm not trying to push myself if people ask me to stop. But definitely, you get to at some point push yourself. You get to be sure about what you do and what's your project, and embrace that you're the person carrying that project. If you don't do it, maybe no one else will. And if you're not sure about yourself, but you're sure about your project, and if you think that if you don't push your project, no one else will, then you got no other choice than to push yourself. Because by doing so, knock on doors. You're pushing your project, and your project is maybe more important than you. I'm an astrophysicist, so my project won't save lives for tens of years. But if you're in a medical field or whatever, can you imagine that maybe every day you pass not knocking on doors is a day that you could have used to save lives? And even if your project doesn't save lives, it can transform them, it can improve them. And it gives you that kind of sense of responsibility to push yourself, not because you want to flatter your ego, but because you deeply believe in what you're doing. And if you don't, ask yourself the question, why don't you believe in what you're doing? It could be good reasons. Could also be bad reasons.
Yeah, maybe you need to switch what you're doing. Amazing.
Maybe so.
This is really good, and we're getting to the end of the interview, and I really love that you're ending on this note. And I have a last question for you, but before I ask you that question, if people want to reach out, learn about Nexus, someone, a scientist wants to hear what you have to offer, how do they find you? Where's the best place to contact you and to find the content that you do, be it TV, podcasts, etc.?
If you Google Nexus by Arnaud Stiepen, I'm very lucky because my name is quite unique in a way that there's no other Stiepen very active on the web. It's fairly easy to find my social networks and websites. Even the TV channels with my TV shows, it's quite easy to find. Whether you're in Europe or outside, it's fairly easy to find. And I'm sure you'll post you'll write some links, and that's a good starting point. Yeah, right. Yeah. And if you're interested, knock on my door.
Yeah. Get your knuckles hard. Right. Very good. I just have a last question for you. And you've already mentioned, because in the French episode you mentioned how for you the way to demystify or debunk the fear of selling is to base yourself on what you just said, which is if you're sure of something, you don't need to feel like you're selling because it's something you believe in fully. So that's given based on what you said before. My question is, and again, I'm gonna spring it as a surprise, but it's because of something you just said, and it has to do with martial arts. And I'm gonna ask it, and if not, I have a backup one. what is the based on your years of martial arts and Aikido, what would you say is something you've learned on the tatami that that you can use or that you use daily or regularly as an entrepreneur?
Well, for those who don't know Aikido, the very first things you learn at Aikido is to fall on the ground. You learn to fall and roll, and it's called ukemi. That means, I don't know the exact word, exact translation to English. In French, we say chute. That means
in
falling.
English it's break falling, yeah.
Break fall, all right. It's a way of falling on the ground and very much limiting the physical damage that you're having. And it's also a way to escape a bad situation by falling and rising up again. And I would say that's probably the hardest, best freaking lesson that you can learn. It's to fail and fail and fail again, but always rise up. You know, there's this scene that I absolutely adore in Rocky, I believe number 3 or 4. And Rocky Balboa is talking with his son, and he says that the best person in boxing is not the one that hits the strongest. It's the one that can take the hits and still move on,
still be
and
standing
be
up
there.
and still move on. Yeah.
Because life doesn't stop hitting you.
Yeah,
that's what Rocky says in the movies, and I believe it's so true and so well said by Stallone in the movie. So yeah, learn to fail, learn to fall, and learn to rise up again.
Amazing.
For sure.
Fail forward. I love it. It's a great link. And I asked you that question not knowing what you were going to say, and I love it. It's amazing. Arnaud, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all you did. Again, if you're watching or listening, just look for Arnaud Stiepen on LinkedIn or whichever. All the links will be in the show notes, but if you want to ask him something, see what he's producing, and see whether you need his services, just look for him on Google. And again, he says he's lucky because his name is quite unique, so it's going to be fairly easy. So, Arnaud, thank you so much. All the best for your project.
Thanks to you.
And,
thanks a lot.
And for you who are watching or listening, subscribe to the show. Send us your comments. We're always super happy to respond, react, and actually learn from you. Because, like Arnaud was saying, we're scientists. We're always learning. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.